Okay, so again, I had stated that if a country has absolute advantage in both products, then we do a calculation of comparative advantage to see does it make sense for them to trade. So I'm going to tell you that the answer is almost always yes, and you just have to, through the calculations, tell me why it makes sense for them to trade, who should specialize in what, who should import and who should export. So remember, import is what we're going to buy or bring into a country. Export is what we sell or goes out of a country. So comparative advantage is the ability to produce a good at a lower opportunity cost than another producer. So when we do these calculations, we're looking for who gives up the least or who has the lowest opportunity cost. So more developed countries like the United States usually have absolute advantage over developing countries, but we still purchase product from developing countries all the time. So the law of comparative advantage shows us how these nations can benefit by specializing and then trading. Here's another video that I want you to watch on your own. It's going to explain more about comparative advantage. And again, I think it's important to kind of listen to another perspective because I think it helps you understand. Okay, so here's a simple formula. So remember before I really stressed paying attention to whether your chart was inputs or outputs, and that is because you are going to do your math differently based on whether or not it's an input or an output. So with comparative advantage with inputs, other goes under. So I'm going to write that. I have a marker board in front of me right now, and so our first example that we do is going to be an inputs because it has hours. And so I'm going to write that at the top of my board, inputs, other, and other means the other product. So when we're looking at comparative advantage for donuts, the other product is cupcakes. So other goes under. So I wrote that on my board to help me remember. And now I have my table here. So what this is saying then is, remember I said I knew it was going to be inputs, and so it's the number of hours that it takes Happy Chains to produce donuts is 1 hour, and Sappy Chains is 2 hours. So I'm going to start out with comparative advantage for donuts. So I'm going to write donuts on my board as well. And I'm going to start with Happy Chains. And I'm looking at, so for donuts, who has comparative advantage? So remember, other goes under. So the other product is cupcakes. So this is going to be donuts over cupcakes. So basically what this is saying is Happy Chains can produce a dozen donuts or a dozen cupcakes, but it's going to take them 1 hour to do that for donuts. So 1. It's going to take them 2 hours to do that for cupcakes. So over 2. So Happy Chains comparative advantage. So what they give up is 0.5 hours in cupcakes is what that's saying. So produce a dozen donuts, they're giving up 0.5 hours in cupcakes. All right. So let's see, what does Sappy Chains give up if they're going to produce donuts? So Sappy Chains, donuts over cupcakes is 2 over 1.5. 2 over 1.5. And I do like to put this into decimal because I feel like that's way easier to compare than fractions. So 2 divided by 1.5 is, I think, 1.33. Yep, 1.333. So I'll go back. 1.33, repeating. All right, so what I'm comparing then is Sappy Chains. If they're going to take time to produce donuts, they give up 1.33 hours in cupcakes. So remember, whoever has comparative advantage is who gives up the least. So comparative advantage for donuts goes to Happy Chains because they give up the least. That number is smaller. All right. Okay, I'm going to erase my board now I got to find a Kleenex or an eraser, but I'm going to erase my board and we're going to do the same thing for cupcakes. Oh, wouldn't you know it, my Kleenex box is empty. So I'm going to use my hand. Okay, so now we're going to solve for cupcakes. I got to be honest, I don't like the data that we're using right now, because you typically do this in a lot of your practice pages that you do this on. You typically do this because one country has absolute advantage in both products. Right now, we can see just based on absolute advantage who should produce what product. But I want to go through the calculations so that you know how to do this. Okay, so we're still using inputs, other goes over, but this time we're solving for cupcakes. And so we got happy chains and we got sappy chains. And that means that our other product goes under. So we got cupcakes over donuts now. Okay, that's how I set it up. So for happy chains, we've got 2 over 1 or 1. And for sappy chains, we got 1.5 over 2. So do that calculation, 0.75, and sure enough, it's the other country that has the comparative advantage in cupcakes. So what this says is if Happy Chains is going to spend time making cupcakes, they are giving up this is supposed to be a 2, sorry. They're giving up 2 hours making donuts, whereas Sappy Chains, if they're going to make cupcakes, they give up 0.75 hours making donuts, and so they have the lowest opportunity cost. Thus, they have comparative advantage. Ta-da! All right, that's comparative advantage with inputs. This next one is just independent practice that we're going to do in class. So I'd encourage you to do that. And then here's another example with outputs. So we do the same thing, only at the top now, our other goes over. So I'm going to change this at the top to outputs. And the way that I remember this is all those O's, right? Outputs, other goes over, lots of O's. So when I set this up, we've got Choo Choo and Notorious chains. So Choo Choo and Notorious. And we have how many donuts? So this is donuts again. Let's solve for donuts. And now the other goes over, so that means cupcakes goes on top. So cupcakes divided by donuts. So for Choo Choo trains, we have 9 over 24. Cupcakes over donuts for Notorious, we have 10 over 12. All right, so do that math, and whoever has the lowest opportunity cost has absolute advantage in donuts. So I get 0.375 for Choo Choo trains. And I get 10 divided by 12. 0.833 for Notorious. So the lowest opportunity cost goes to Choo Choo trains. They have the comparative advantage for donuts. Okay, I am going to stop the video there, but you do the same thing for cupcakes. And I'd encourage you to go through all the slides as listed and do the exit slip, because that's my check to see if you're understanding this. And on Thursday, there will be more practice of this in class. All right? Hope this helps you understand. We sure missed you in class today.